Hello, you are listening to Germantown Community Radio, WRGU 92.9 FM. Welcome to the Jumpstart Philly Real Estate Radio Show, a weekly radio program that spotlights positive real estate development and neighborhood revitalization throughout Philadelphia. I'm your host, Derek Hengemil. Jumpstart Philly is a unique community development program that trains, mentors, networks, and provides funding to aspiring real estate developers in 7 different Philadelphia neighborhoods, including Germantown, where the program was founded. Jumpstart believes that you can do well by doing good and focuses on removing neighborhood blight, scattered site rehab, creating a healthy mix of affordable and market rate housing, and avoiding gentrification through slow, steady growth and keeping wealth local. Interviews are conducted during Jumpstart Germantown's weekly Jumpinar series on Monday nights at 7 p.m., held via Zoom webinar. For more information about these events, you can check out the events page at jumpstartgermantown.com. This week is a bit different. We have no guest, but our program director Angie Williamson and I will be giving a behind-the-scenes look at the Jumpstart loan application process and give you our best practices to make things quick and easy with your loan approval. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and be sure to check out the podcast version of this program at jumpstartgermantown.com/media.
Thanks, Derek. Yeah, I'm really excited about tonight's conversation. There's going to be a lot of information that might be familiar to you guys, but a lot of new stuff too. I'm Angie Williamson. I'm the director of Jumpstart Germantown and Jumpstart Philly for anyone who might be new and just tuning in for the first time. We thank you for joining us another Monday evening. It's so great that folks are coming and showing up every Monday to learn more and broaden their real estate horizons. And we're glad that we're able to find so many great speakers to do that every week. And just want to say, if you are interested in becoming a speaker for one of these and having a conversation with Derek, shoot us an email or put something in the Q&A or, let us know. We would love to have you share your expertise that might help other folks who are new or even experienced real estate developers. So I've been doing this for about 5 years now, and I absolutely love my job. I love working with all of you guys. The Jumpstart community is just an amazing group of folks who are taking risks to improve their communities, and I find it extremely inspiring. And it's really great to be able to work behind the scenes to help you guys do that. So I'm excited tonight for Derek and I to try to give you some sort of tips and checklist to really help you do that even better and more quickly and get things done faster on the Jumpstart loan side of things. So.
Yeah, and even though this is a different type of Jumpinar, we're definitely going to still cover the question and answer side of things. So there's the Q&A tab on Zoom, so it's on your Zoom toolbar. So anytime throughout tonight, just you can throw a question in there. I don't think we'll save them to the end since it's just Angie and I. We're not like hosting a guest or anything. We can take pauses and such. So I'll keep an eye out on the Q&A tab if you want to submit questions there. And I think we're good to get started. But just some background on myself, since Angie said she's been doing this for 5 years. I think I've been doing it for like a year and a couple months, I think. I started a year and a half ago as a Drexel co-op. This was my second out of 3 co-ops as a student at Drexel. And now I stayed part-time between my second and third one, and now I'm doing my third co-op here. So it just kind of feels like my job now, and that's great. I really love it, and I resonate with all the things Angie said. It's a great community and a really, really, really impactful organization to work for. So I might just be a co-op, but I feel like I've gotten the hang of the loan application process, and I've been learning along with all of you because a year and a half ago I knew squat about real estate, but then I was thrust into these Monday night sessions where I have like an hour-long conversation about every topic you can imagine. So I've learned a lot, and just when I'm conversing with you, think of it from that perspective. Like I'm trying to help you just as much as I'm trying to help myself understand it. And I think Angie agrees the same way, because neither of us are real estate developers.
Right. Yeah. I think. Yeah. I didn't say that, but it's something I usually lead with, is that I am very risk averse when it comes to real estate. So I'm super excited to be on this side of things and helping others make those dreams come true. But I'm not a developer myself. My background's actually in planning and economic development, but yeah, I definitely agree with everything Derek says. And just a co-op, I don't say that. You're more than a co-op for sure. So he's an instrumental part of the team. So I think we're going to start off with just sort of a quick overview of our loan program for anyone who might be new. I won't spend a lot of time on this because there's all the information on our website. But for anyone who doesn't know, the Jumpstart Philly and Jumpstart Germantown loan program offers financing for projects that are buy and renovate. So anything that you find in our lending area, you want to purchase the property, renovate it, and either sell it or rent it out to tenants after that renovation, we might be able to help you. It's residential property primarily. We have done a few mixed-use properties, but it's few and far between, and we definitely scrutinize those applications a lot more just because they're more complex. So we're looking primarily at residential stuff. Short-term financing, our loan is only 12 months. So it's a get in and get out, and then you either refinance to pay us off, or you're going to sell that property and pay us off. Also, if you are doing a buy and sell, we don't do credit checks because you pay us off with the proceeds from the sale. If you are going to be refinancing, then we do look at credit because we need to make sure that you're going to be able to refinance with a traditional lender or a lender of your choice at the end of our loan term. We unfortunately don't have funds for permanent or mini perm loans, so we can't do the right refinance ourselves. So you will have to find a different lender for that refinance. And our loans are typically 85% LTC. It's going to be a lot of alphabet soup. So LTC is loan to cost. And basically, you're going to add up how much you're paying for the property, how much you're spending on the construction, and then we do a loan for 85% of that. And then you would bring 15% to the table. Also, a lot of folks who are new don't realize that we don't upfront the construction costs. So you're not going to walk away from closing with a check to do the construction. You're going to need funds to get that work started. And then we do a draw process. So that's how we will distribute those construction funds. So,
cool. Yeah, and I think we might, if we have time, cover some of the draw process too. So while I guess we'll focus initially on the loan process, like or the intake process, like before you actually close on the loan. But I want to definitely touch on some things on the draw request sheet because that's one of the difficult pieces to put together. Yeah.
Definitely. So that's just sort of our loan and what its purpose is. We've done more than 200 loans to date, over 25 million in loans. We have seen many applications come through, and we do all the loan servicing in-house. So we are evaluating it. The people you see here are looking at every application that comes through. We're looking at the numbers. We're doing the comp research. Determining if it's going to be a good project for you because we really want it to be successful for you. And then beyond that, we keep, after closing, we're the ones who are going to be looking at your draw requests and scheduling them with the inspectors. We have some great inspectors who do the draws, and then we also do the any extensions that might be needed, and then the payoff at the end. So we do all the servicing in-house. So a lot of the tips tonight are going to focus on the loan application, but also the whole process until the end as well.
Just a quick, while we're covering the loan process as a whole, Jacqueline's wondering, do we provide loans for new construction, like on empty lots? So I guess, and I don't even know the answer for this, I guess, what is the minimum improvement like to a property that we would qualify for,
Yeah, so we will consider new construction. We have not to date done a new construction loan. Basically what you would need, how it's different from our typical renovation loan, is we would need to see full plans on that property. So like what does the architecture plans look like? And we would also need to see that the permits are in place before we would move forward. But we will consider new construction. And Derek, to your point, as far as like, is there a minimum amount? We don't have a dollar minimum amount, but we do say it needs to be more than just lipstick. So if you're buying a property and like just painting it and then going to resell it, that's really not the intent of our loan. It's more of looking at blighted properties that need some pretty big updates. So it doesn't have to be a full gut rehab though. It can be sprucing up updates, but it's not just like a paint job and then selling it again or renting it out.
Yeah, and we got another question from Lansana, and she was wondering, You said 85% typical LTC, like that's what our standard rate is. And she's wondering if there's any cases where that's different. And the answer is yes. So that is a flexible rate, and typically it goes down, I'd say, in more cases, right? Yes,
Right.
it'll go to like 70, 75%, because for many reasons, Angie, which you can articulate better than I.
Yeah, so it's if all the numbers work as is when you're submitting your pro forma, we'll look at 85%. So if some of the numbers are borderline or we're a little concerned, we might suggest a lower loan amount, and that means that we have a little more coverage and a little more comfort on our end. But we wouldn't, we would explain that to you prior to just moving forward with a lower amount. The vast majority of our loans, though, are at that 85%. And on very rare occasions, we've gone above 85%. When we definitely will is if you already own the property free and clear and you don't have a mortgage, then we can look at construction only financing and can look at 100% construction only.
Great. And then Nafisa was just asking 85% of purchase and construction, or just construction, and it's of the acquisition and construction costs. So it's that combined number, but not 85% of like your loan fees and the other costs that are added on, right?
Right. So we look at just the construction and the purchase, and also closing costs, which right now I think we estimate at 5.14%, if I'm correct. So that's like what your total project cost is. And then our loan is 85% of that. And then we add the fees and a 2% fee onto that. That is a lot of lenders will make you pay that up front, and rather than doing that, we wrap it into the loan. So that 2% fee is added on after that.
Cool. So somebody was reading our minds. Sherry said, "What is the usual turnaround time for the loan closing?" So why don't we talk about our loan, or the timeline, I guess, from as soon as somebody hears the word Jumpstart, where do they go?
Yeah. So when we get that that application, we evaluate it as soon as we can. We do very quick turnaround. So by the next business day, we will get back to you. I will say if we get a loan application after 4, we typically are already gone, so we won't see it until the next day. So if we've gotten a ton of applications, it might be the following day. But honestly, it's usually that day, that same day that we're able to get back to folks. So we get the application, we're back to you in 1 business day. If everything looks great, then what we do is issue a pre-approval if you don't have the project or the property under agreement. If you do already have the property under agreement and all the numbers look good and the application's solid, then our next step is to do an inspection. We don't do appraisals like other lenders and banks will do. So we instead have someone that we know knows this area and the properties, go out and meet you at the property to go over your application and specifically the construction budget on site to make sure that it makes sense. And so that would be our next step. That is usually scheduled 1 to 3 business days after the property is under agreement. And then by the next day after the inspection, we issue a letter of commitment. And that we do now by DocuSign electronically. And then we also will accept your loan commitment fee electronically. We do an ACH withdrawal, so we can do all that very quickly. And then we are able to close basically as quickly as you can. So we need a few things from the borrower. If you are an entity, we would need your LLC or your incorporation documents. We're going to need some insurance information about the property, and I'm trying to think of what else we need. A W-9, just a few documents. It's a pretty low doc process. And then from your title company, we're going to need a few things. We need what's called a lender's title policy that protects us. We will need a HUD-1, which is basically the buyer-seller cost item list for the closing. And then we also are going to need their wiring information. And once we have all that from you and your title company, then we can close within a couple of days. So it can be a very quick process. I'll say what holds it up most is title. So if there's like an issue with the title, it can take a week or 2. Or if there's a big issue with the title, it can take months. And on occasion, never close if there's an issue that title can't resolve. Yeah. So, but I will, from the beginning to the end of the process, if your application comes in and it's just like pristine, we don't have to go back and forth on anything, all the numbers are great, you already have it under agreement, we can close. We have closed within as few as 7 days. So that's definitely not the norm. I'd say probably like 2 to 3 weeks is norm, but we can push things through very quickly as long as there's no issues.
And just you touched on the title process briefly, and I want to quickly plug. 2 weeks ago, we had a Jumpinar just like this on the title process specifically, and kind of demystifying it and why it can take long and how to make sure it doesn't take long and that sort of thing. So. As Angie pointed out, that's usually where the most emails get sent back and forth is throughout the title process, just because there's like more than two parties involved at that point, I guess. So for clarification on that, definitely check out that Jumpinar 2 weeks ago.
Definitely.
Let me see if there's maybe I can look at these questions, because I can see this is quickly going to turn into a lengthy Q&A session if I ask all of these. But a few that popped out, people are curious about the LTC ratio and what can cause it to go up and down. So I think you covered it, but just like, again, can you give us a couple examples of something that would make the LTC drop below 85%? Like Keith suggested, would comps affect that at all?
So they could. So if we aren't able, if you're going to do a buy and hold, for instance, and your ARV, which is after rehab value, is your comps don't quite support the ARV that you need to be able to pay off the Jumpstart loan, then yeah, that could impact the LTC on our end and how much we are willing to loan. On a buy and sell property. Similarly, if the comps don't support the sales price and we think the sales price is a little bit lower than what you say, and then that means that your net profit and your net margin are lower, and if it drops below our threshold, we typically want to see at least 20% net margin. So if that's not there, then we could say, well, if we lower our loan to cost, then that can kind of help even it out and balance it out.
So, and then Lisa was also asking about our interest rate, like what is our typical interest rate? And so right now for both, it changes every month based on the rate that our lender gives us. So it starts at, or there's two different rates. There's one if you're a training program graduate from any of the, I don't know how many there are now, 9 training programs throughout Philadelphia. And if you're, is it 9, I think, right?
I think there's 7 in Philly and then Jumpstart in Norristown. So I think it's 8.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, 8 programs. And if you're a graduate of one of those programs and you're on our list of graduates that we have from those people, you'll be eligible for the lower interest rate, which is right now 6.85. And if you're not a training program, you're at the non-discounted rate of 7.35, which is a half percentage point higher, which is still very low by all accounts. But yeah, so that's our interest rate and it changes every month. But as of late, it's changed by like 0.01%. So it's pretty consistent around that like 6.85 to 6.35 range, or 7.35 at the time. Yeah.
And while it changes each month, it does lock in at your closing. So once you close, it's a fixed rate. But say you put in your application, at the end of July, and we're at 6.85, but you don't close until August, the rate may change by the time you've closed. But once you close, it is fixed.
So before I move on with any questions, were there any other timeline things that we needed to cover? I think we got to loan closing, and that's after loan closing. There's a more processes, but we'll cover that over email once you get the loan, right?
Yeah. So once you close, really the next step is you start your construction, and when you're ready to make a draw, you'll submit a draw request. Form. It's really simple, just a spreadsheet with your budget essentially and what work you've already done to date. So you'll submit that, and then we will let our inspector know and have them come out and meet you at the property. But yeah, it's the bulk of the kind of the back and forth is up until closing. So
cool. Just maybe one more question before we move into the checklist we have here. Somebody was just curious about where we source our money from, and we already covered what our rate was, but yeah, you want to tell us a little bit about our lenders? Yeah,
so we have 2 separate programs, Jumpstart Germantown and Jumpstart Philly. And it's basically geographically different. So Jumpstart Germantown handles the Germantown and vicinity, and our funding is a line of credit that our president, Ken Weinstein, which is a personal line of credit, and it's revolving. So we started out with $2.5 million, and we've been able to revolve that and have made more than I think we're almost at 200 loans with the Jumpstart Germantown loan program. Jumpstart Philly, it's a little bit newer. We're almost at 2 years, and it is a $3 million loan that we received from the Reinvestment Fund, which is a CDFI, a community development finance institution here locally. So they lend us money to then lend out to you guys. And we are also about to get some additional funds to make sure that we don't have to slow anything down in that pipeline.
Yeah, and so and then the second part to his question, which I didn't understand, but he just clarified, is the default rate. So do you know our default rate, which is how many loans default on their payments?
Yeah. So right now we have one out of, I think we're at, what are we at, like 240 loans, and we have one that's in default. So very, very low. We are very different from traditional lenders in that we do a lot of, back and forth and a lot of teaching moments. And we, not that traditional lenders don't want to see you succeed, everyone does, but we're very invested in that. And in some ways kind of see this as like our caseload. Like we're really talking to the borrowers as much as is needed to make sure that things move forward. And we also do offer extensions, which I don't know that a lot of other lenders might do. So that is helpful if needed. There is a cost to it. It's not something we encourage folks to plan on doing because it can get costly and eat into your profit. But yes, we also can offer some extensions if a contractor walks off the job, you're not able to refi as quickly as you think, things like that.
Yeah. I think that the one term that always ties that together for me is like you've said it before, Angie, is like their goals are our goals. So if your goal is to succeed on this project, we're not going to approve you for it unless we want it to happen too. I think about that a lot when I'm reviewing applications and looking at properties and stuff. I'm like, yeah, like obviously they're applying for a loan for this because it's going to be a great success. like we should be able to support them on that. It's not like we're just looking at the numbers and thinking about it in like an echo chamber. We love the neighborhood too, and we love the properties as well. So it's not like that we're disconnected from that, Right.
Yeah. We definitely are looking, very closely at the whole application. The numbers have to work, but we also want it to be a good project for you and for the community. So, yeah.
If you get approved for a loan, we believe you can do it. So that's how that works. Okay, cool. So maybe we can there's still plenty more questions, which we're probably going to have to take some time at the end to go back through them. Totally. But why don't we get started with the checklist we worked up tonight?
Awesome. So we, some of this is going to sound like common sense. Actually, a lot of it is very common sense, but we came up with these from, like I said earlier, all the hundreds of applications that we've reviewed and just seeing some common mistakes over and over again. And so we thought it would be a good idea to let folks know what those mistakes are and how you might be able to avoid them, mainly because it will save you time. And that is so important in today's market because things are, flying off the shelves, so to speak. And you need to be able to get your offer in and get it accepted as soon as possible. And we want to be able to help make that happen. And the best way is that your loan application is, in pristine condition, and there's no questions that we need to ask, and not, there's not those common mistakes that can kind of cost you hours or days to make up. So that's where this is coming from. So I don't want it to sound, you might be like, duh, when we come over some of these things, but it really is just a checklist to help you have your, how the process go smoother and quicker is really where this is coming from. And we think it will, really help you guys out, and also help us out, because when we can go faster, we can review more loan applications. So
and I think it's is like the organization is a huge thing about all this. And like, sometimes people in any situation get frustrated when someone's not replying to them as soon as they are getting their message to them. And usually it's because there's been stuff all over the place in that communication where like they can't figure out where to find the information that you need, like because you didn't set it up in the right way. So I think it's like you're taking extra time at the beginning of the process so that when it's happening, we're on top of it and we're willing and able to like do things quickly for you. Sort of like due diligence in any project. Like the more we could tie this all to like a rehab sort of thing, but it's important to spend more time up front so that throughout the process, when you need that quick response and that like, immediate organization of stuff, it can happen because you set it up. Yeah.
Definitely. So I'm just going to go through some of the things that Derek and I over the past week or so have kind of put together as we were preparing for this that we want to make sure everyone knows. The first one is read our website. So even if you've made a loan application before, we update it regularly. So, take a look at it, jumpstartphilly.com/loans. That is where you can find all the information about our loan program. And a lot of the calls I get, usually from first-time borrowers, the answer to their question is on the website. So I would say definitely take a look there if you have any question. Don't hesitate to ask us, but your answer might just be right there on the website. So take a look there first.
One thing I'd recommend about the website is we don't have a search function on our website. You can't like search a term and it'll bring it right to it. And some of the sections are lengthy text blocks, just because we're a loan service, we're a loan program. That's how it works. So if you just do Control F and type in like rate or Control F and AMI or whatever you're looking for, usually it'll snap right to it. Like that's kind of how I use it. If I need something off the top of my head really quick, I just Control F and search the term, and usually it comes up right away. So that can save you time than just reading straight through it.
Yes, definitely. That's a great tip. And so once you are submitting your loan application, you've read the website, you've talked to us if you have other questions, definitely double check your loan application before you hit submit. So you would be surprised how many times we get a loan application with the wrong property address. So Derek or I are, researching this one address, we're looking at the comps, we're doing all the evaluation. We email back and they're like, oh, sorry, that was not like they either maybe transposed two of the numbers, or it was a property they were looking at previously and they forgot to change it. So just, I know like that sounds really simple, but just do a double check to make sure that your pro forma and your property and the loan application have the same property, and that it's the property that you want us to look at. That can definitely take a lot of time out of it if we're looking at one property and you're thinking it's a different one. So double check the address, double check your email, triple check your email. That's the way that we interact with you. And sometimes folks put in the wrong email address, but it's a real email. So we're sending an email, it doesn't get bounced back. We think we've, communicated with you. We don't hear anything. But then it turns out you maybe misspelled it or put at AOL when it was at Gmail or whatever it is. So make sure you make that it's the correct email where you can receive information and receive emails back from us.
And in addition to that, like if you have a partner that you're working with or somebody that you want to be copied on all communication, I've had people, in the application in one of the note sections just say, please copy this email on emails. And then once I do it once, it stays in my feed. So it's really easy to continue doing it. So that kind of foresight, like at the beginning, if there's someone that you're going to be like forwarding a bunch of emails to or replying and copying them on, just put it on the application. We're more than happy to send communication to multiple people. There will probably be like one primary one for certain stuff, but any place we can, I'll copy you on it. Yeah.
Definitely. And then, similarly, your phone number and other information, just making sure that's correct. And this one is more just, it makes it easy, our lives easier, is if you capitalize everything that needs to be capitalized. So we use the loan application and we cut and paste into our system that then is creating the loan package, the mortgage and the deed, or not the deed, the mortgage and the assignment of rents and leases and all of our loan. And it just makes it easier if we don't have to backspace and capitalize, your name and the street names and all of those. And it's also just more professional. And one of our goals is to prepare you to be ready for traditional lenders. And so, just making sure that everything looks good and is, correctly capitalized and the correct information on there. So those are sort of the loan application on that Woofu app. Those are some good tips. As far as the pro forma, so one thing is that we get a lot of numbers files and PDFs, and we can't open numbers files. So our office is PC, we don't have Macs, and so we need to have the pro forma attached as either an Excel or a Google Sheet. So it's on our it's on the website, and it's also in the Woofu app. It says, like, make sure it's small. We totally understand that people miss that. If you have a Mac, you're just used to doing that, but that'll take time, because once we open it and we see it's the wrong file, we have to email, and then you might already be at work for the day and not see it until lunch, and so hours can be wasted that way. So making sure that the pro forma is either an Excel file or a Google Sheet. And if it's a Google Sheet, make sure you grant us access so that we can open it, so that, again, we're not wasting time, that we can't see the pro forma and take a look at the numbers.
Yeah, and when that happens, when it is a Google file, we're not going to be using the shared Google file. Like, we're not going to be using the shared Google Sheet with you, so you won't see us editing and working on it. We'll save that as a separate document and then have that for our access. And then when we send anything back to you, we'll be sending it as an Excel file. So it's like, there should be any confusion where you should just be like, oh, I updated it on the spreadsheet. We're not going to automatically have that unless you send us the downloaded Excel file of any sheet you use. Yeah.
Yep. And then let's see. Another one on the file itself is naming your file. So you probably have noticed, if you've completed an application, our file name is like merged application with a date or something. And it's just helpful if you put in the property address as that. And so when we have several applications that we're looking at, they aren't all the same name at the bottom on our tabs. So that's a helpful tip, just to name your pro forma file.
Yeah, I don't know that or not, but the other thing is, don't use the pro forma file. Like, make sure anytime you're submitting a new application, you're downloading it from our website. I don't know if you said that already, Angie, but you download the most recent version, because sometimes we catch that there's a formula that was incorrect, or we make updates to anything. Like recently, we merged the two loan programs applications. So we had like one for Jumpstart Germantown and one for Jumpstart Philly, and then we realized we could just combine them. So sometimes we'll get applications that are just for one of the programs and doesn't encompass all the information that it needs to. So make sure you're always getting the one from the website, and like Angie said, rename it so we can keep it organized.
Yeah, and sometimes people will save the website file to their computer and 3 months later use that, but we highly recommend going to the website and downloading it each time you're submitting a new loan application, because it can change. It doesn't change all the time, but we want to make sure that you're using the most up-to-date pro forma, and that one is going to be the one from the website, not one that you might have saved to your computer. So that's a great tip.
If you're just tuning in, Jumpstart Program Director Angie Williamson and I are discussing best practices for the Jumpstart loan application and giving a behind-the-scenes look at our loan application and review process. Thanks for listening to the Jumpstart Philly Real Estate Radio Show on Germantown Community Radio WRGU 92.9 FM. I hope you're enjoying the discussion.
All right, let's see. Going down my list.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, all we've covered so far is literally just like naming of files and all that. So you can tell where the importance is. It's on the simple things that you don't think about. Like, we haven't even talked about the numbers or anything, like the actual information that you're inputting. It's just organizing is almost more important than any discretionary thing that you can do. So I think now we're going to move into some of the numbers and talk about that.
Right. Yeah, that's the nitty gritty of it. But I think in one of our previous Jumpinars, maybe it was about contracting, It might have been Jordan who was like, the pre-planning is where it's at. And that's sort of what you were alluding to earlier, Derek, is like spending that time up front is really important. So now to the numbers itself, and in that pro forma where you're putting in your budget and you're putting in what you think it's going to sell for, what you think you might rent it for. A couple of things to double check on your checklist before submitting. Does it make sense? And I know this sounds very, you're like, of course it makes sense, but just looking at it again, for instance, on your construction budget, it might be from a contractor. They can make mistakes too. So if you know you have 15 windows and the budget for windows only says $900, it's like, just making that sort of like reality check, like, okay, do these numbers make sense? Don't just plug in everything from your contractor, really kind of think about whether or not that's a realistic number for that. And then as far as your comps, do those make sense? Are the comps that you are using good comps? And I think we've had other jump-in-ours where we go into more detail about that, but just like similar property, similar block, similar feel. It's not just, oh, these are both 3-bedroom, 1 bath and around 1,200 square feet. It's much more than just that. It's really looking at the full picture of the property, the block, what the end product of your project is going to be, and the end product of the comps. If it's high-end luxury comps and you're doing a basic renovation, those are not going to be comparable. So making sure it's a good comp and that you're okay.
Yeah, one thing I would add about the comps is don't feel bad if we reply back and we say, oh, we need 3 new comps or we need 2 more comps. Like, it's a really hard, and I can attest because I only started doing it like just over a year ago. It's really hard to like understand what makes for a good comp. So if we say that it's not a good comp, that doesn't mean we're trying to deflate your sales price or we don't believe you or anything. We understand that it's like a really complex and like not straightforward decision to make which comps to input. So try your best, and like a lot of the back and forth is about that, is going back and forth about comps and the styles of the properties and curb appeal and all that. So don't feel bad if we immediately shoot back. Like that's one thing that can take time, is to find real good comps. So usually that's like one of the first things I look at is I say, okay, did he put or did this person put in, like commercial comps for a property that's not going to have a commercial unit on it. Like I'm going to let you know right away, get new comps in there because that might take a little time. And then while you're doing that, we'll continue with the review and that sort of thing.
Yeah. And like Derek said, that is definitely an area where we're going back and forth with applicants a lot. So I think on the comps tab, it has up at the top sort of a note about like what constitutes a good comp. But again, it's not a science. Like Derek said, it can be a little murky. A lot of times if you're doing a duplex and triplex, it can be near impossible to find a comp that's a duplex or a triplex near your property. And make note, you can make note of that in the application, that this is all you found. This is, what you can find, and then we'll go from there. But we will go back and forth because we do need to make sure that the property can either sell or be rented out for the price that is in that application. So comp is very important.
From my experience, the bare minimum that you need to do to like get a picture of a comp is at least go on the street view and do like a 360 turn. Like just the picture from, that's one thing I've noticed on Redfin. Sometimes the picture will conveniently cut out what's surrounding the property. So you want to at least like look at a few different sources and make sure you get the 360 view so you're seeing the entire block and not just that little slice that they are advertising on Redfin. And then before we move on from the construction budget numbers, one thing that we run into sometimes is people will put in material only or labor only costs just because, that's how they were given the cost from the estimate from the contractor, or they're not paying for a portion of that, or for some reason, or they already have materials. But it's important to put like each line item should be the total amount that it costs material and labor to complete that item of work. Angie, you can probably go into a little bit more detail, but sometimes there will be line items that spread throughout a couple others. Like obviously your kitchen and your bath need electric, so you're not going to like take out all the electric costs and assign it to each item, but definitely not like materials only or labor only or like anything like that. It should make sense, common sense.
Right. And if you are going to be doing some of the work yourself or providing materials yourself, we need that as a note. And then also the amount that that's going to be. So say you're like, I don't want a loan for the total construction cost of the renovation. I only need it for the labor, and I'm going to be providing the materials. But we need to see the full picture of the budget so we can see what your actual margin is going to be and your profit. So we can tell you, like, okay, you're going to be doing the materials yourself. If you do that, your profit is only X amount, and your net margin is only 10%. That doesn't necessarily mean we won't do the loan, but we just want you to be aware of what the project numbers actually are. And so, yeah, making notes in there is definitely encouraged, so that we get a full picture. But yeah, that's what we need. We just need that full picture of what is involved. So sometimes if folks are intending on like doing painting themselves or doing demo themselves, and they have zero in those two budgets, but they didn't let us know, then we're like, hey, this project is going to need demo and painting, because we don't know that you intend to do those on your own. So just letting us know, it's super helpful, and we'll avoid that extra time going back and forth.
And then also, if it's not obvious, you can add and subtract items from your budget. The performa is not, or those items that we give on there are like standard for what we think a rehab needs. But some other things or I think we might have added basement on there, Angie, did we?
Mm-hmm.
But basement and some other things. There's weird things that pop up that you could just add yourself. Just there's a couple extra lines at the bottom. Yeah.
Definitely, and they can be changed. So if you're, if the line item categories that we have listed are different, you can also, that's part of the pro forma that you can manipulate. So you can go in there and change them. But like Derek said, those are kind of the basic ones.
Angie,
all right.
It is already 7:45. I just want to let you know.
Okay.
We don't have to rush. I mean, I'm good, and I don't know if you're good, but I'm good to go a little beyond 8. But let's move through so we can at least get to some questions.
Definitely. All right. So some other just common sense checks on your pro forma. If you are doing a buy and hold, does the refinance or the permanent loan pay off the Jumpstart loan? So that's a big one. If your permanent loan number in there is smaller than the Jumpstart loan plus our interest, then the deal doesn't work. So looking at that, looking at the scope of work. So this is an area where we need to make sure your budget and the scope of work mesh. So if you say you're doing, all new roof, new HVAC, new air conditioning, and yet in your budget, those have very little, dollar amounts attached to them, that's a big red flag, and we're going to have to go back and forth. So making sure your scope of work is clear and it matches with your budget. I will say scope of work is more than just full gut rehab. So if you just say full gut rehab, it makes it kind of hard for us to look at your budget and know, is this going to fit? Because are you doing all electric heat? Are you doing, we just doesn't have to go into great detail, but some detail about your scope of work is super helpful. So we know if the budget numbers make sense, which is our, one of our main jobs is like, okay, is this realistic? Yeah. So a little more info on the scope of work goes a long way.
And you would think that we're not asking you to write a paragraph or anything, because that's really hard to read and not organized. So bullet points are great if you just write for bathroom, this is the expenses in the bathroom. This is for kitchen. This is the expenses for the kitchen. Bullet points, just, as if you were taking notes or something to give people just more information about that totally works. And I'll also say one of the most common responses to the thing is when people, Angie, put in just full gut rehab or adding a bathroom, and that's all they give about the property. Usually I'll just ask back, say, hey, give us any and all construction information you have. It doesn't matter how insignificant you think it is. Just part of it is just proving to us that you've done your due diligence and have all that information. It might not even be worried about what the specifics are. It's just if you show us that you've thought about you've thought about it and you're able to provide it, that goes a long way, I think.
Yeah, definitely. At this point, we need to know that you have a scope of work, and then the secondary that the budget works. But yeah, that you have a plan for what that renovation is definitely key. And then, all right, let's see. This is back to a nitty gritty one. Our list was just kind of haphazard, but is in the pro forma, making sure you put the address. So there's like on the very first tab, there's a red letters. I think they might be in all caps that says address. So you'll click there and type in your address. It just makes it a lot easier when we're looking at multiples of these to be able to see what address we're looking at.
Before we move, before we move on from like construction line items, somebody asked, or Nafisa asked, if we hire a consultant, architect, or designer, etc., for the project, can their fee be included? So that's one thing that I've asked you about a couple times is like what personnel fees. Some people have asked if they can put, I forget what it was, a borrower or compensation for an individual that's not related to the construction. Like that's a total no go.
Right.
But
yeah, so your architect and designer, their fee can be in there. I think it's actually, we now have like architect design as a sort of a basic line item. So that can be in there. Developer's fee would not be in there. That's basically your profit. So you wouldn't budget for your profit. If your contractor has like some of the more high-end contractors might have a fee that they charge on top of everything, and that can be in your budget. So, but yeah, any questions on specifics on that, you can ask us, but architects and design definitely should be in there.
Cool. All right, moving on. What do we got next?
All right. So this is for folks who are going to do a buy and hold, and in those operating expenses, another place that we see a lot of mistakes. So look at your taxes. That's something you can actually go and find out. I forget exactly what the tax rate is right now. I want to say it's 1.38 something, but of the assessed city value. So you can look up the tax rate for Philly. You can look up the assessed value, and you can know what those taxes are going to be. A lot of people will just put in a random number. Just be, having it more accurate helps. Insurance. A lot of people will just put in like $500 for insurance. I have never seen insurance that low, typically around 1,000, but you're also going to be getting insurance. So you could go ahead and get a quote or, a quick online estimate even to have a more accurate number. Also in that operating expense, if you are renting out, there's going to be rental license fee. Currently that's $56 per unit. So you can, if it's a single family, $56. If it's duplex, 56 times 2. So you're gonna know that number. And if it is single family and you are going to be passing on a lot of the utility costs to the tenant, then that water, sewer, that electric, gas are going to be zero. If you as the landlord are going to be paying those costs yourself and maybe having a higher rent because of that, then you would enter in those. But a lot of times the single family, folks the landlords are not paying for those utilities. If you're duplex or triplex, there's going to be some common area utilities that are probably going to be needed. So make sure you are accounting for that. Also trash, anything in the city that is more than one unit, there is a city trash fee that currently I believe is $500 annually. So if you're doing a duplex, we want to see that $500 in there for that trash fee. So those are some operating expense mistakes that we see.
Just to add to operating expenses, like that's another, or that's a good example of an opportunity where like putting that information in the notes or something can save you, a few hours of communication. If you put zero in there, but while you're filling it out, you thought about it, you think, the tenant will be paying them, I don't need to put this in there. And you put in zero, we're still going to ask you why there was zero in that. And that could, take a couple emails back and forth. So rather than having that happen, just put it in the notes up top. Just say, 10 or the expenses are zero because tenant will be paying for the utility. Same thing with any of those other case by case things that you could just let us know up front and save some time.
Definitely. All right. And then the last, as far as pro forma file, so we have locked our spreadsheet. However, it doesn't always stick. So sometimes if you are opening it in a different format than Excel, all the cells are open again. But please only put in information in the green shaded cells. It's on the top, I think, of each tab to only fill in the green cells. All the other ones are formulas that we have created and we don't want changed. And it really takes up a ton of time if they are changed, because then we need to like go through and see all the other numbers that have changed because of that. So only the green shaded cells is where an applicant will put any numbers. And if you have access to those other numbers or other cells, please keep those as they are. So that'll definitely help us a lot. And then as far as the back and forth, as we've talked about, one thing that is really helpful is to kind of keep all the conversation in a single email thread. That way we aren't searching for an answer that, is in a different email, and we can just go and see everything for this one property and one loan application is in a single email thread. That's really helpful and saves time, and we can see all the communication at once. So, and also CCing Derek and I, we always, we try to always CC each other. We also make mistakes too. So, making sure that when one of us has emailed you, that you reply all, so that we're both in that line of communication and can respond, because we're both looking at them, and depending on our schedules, one or the other of us might get back to you. So it's you're going to have a faster response rate if you're able to CC both of us.
Even if you've been having a conversation with one of them or one of us, and you're like, that person doesn't need to know this. Well, even if we don't need to know it and we're CC'd on it, that'll help us down the line when one of us asks each other a question about something and we're like, oh yeah, I saw that, I was CC'd on it. That was like one of the tiny little frustrating things, is just always having to reply all and add your email, and then it gets all disjointed and hard to read sometimes. So definitely, no matter what, like, there's very few cases where there would ever be an email about a loan that wouldn't need both of us. I would say, like, any and all thing about your loan should copy both of us.
Yeah, definitely. And that kind of is going to go take us into sort of some general tips that are helpful both in the loan application process, but also throughout your loan servicing. And if we have time, we'll go back to some draw requests.
Yeah.
We just talked about reply all, communicating in a single email thread. Those are great tips in general, even outside of the loan application. So once you're asking about draw requests, everything for draw one is in one email thread, and you're replying to all of us. But also the reply all is helpful when, your title company is involved, or your realtor, if you have one. So, when we're going through that process of closing, there can be a lot of people that need to know information. So that's important. Another thing, when you have a lot of people on the email, is addressing who it's to. And this goes, honestly, I feel like title companies make this mistake more than our applicants do. But so if you are sending an email to us, but also the title company, your realtor, maybe the seller, whoever else is involved, and it just is asking a question, we might not know if that question is meant for us or if it's meant for the title company. So just saying, like, Derek, and then the question, is super helpful, so that we know, oh, this is for us to respond.
Yeah.
And then as far as emails that we send, and this is something that I am guilty of, is reading the first question and shooting back a response to that question only. So, I know a lot of our emails can be lengthy, and we apologize. We just we want to try to ask as many questions as at once, to, speed up the process. So just making sure that you're reading the email and answering all those questions, so that we don't have to, take longer going back and forth. Like I said, this is definitely a mistake everyone makes, because you get excited and you're in a hurry, and you shoot that email off with the first question answered and skip the rest, but try to make sure that you've answered all those questions that we ask.
And same thing here, with, like, whatever communicates the information in an efficient way works. So you don't have to be formal and say, like, hey, Derek, and write 3 paragraphs about the answers to my questions. Like, you can put bullet points, and you could skip the pleasantries. It's all right. Like 5 bullet points answering all the questions I asked is way better than 2 sentences answering one of them. It just helps us, and like, we understand that sometimes you're in a rush, and like, rather than rather than wait and send a thoughtful reply, it'll help us if you just like shoot back the information we need really quick, no matter how like short and concise it is.
Yeah, definitely. And so my last two for just communication are more in the loan servicing side of things than the loan application. So a lot of times I'll get an email from a borrower and it'll have a question, but it won't tell me the property address. And we have so many loans, and even some of our borrowers have more than one property. And we love you all, but I don't always remember whose property is which. So it just takes me, it just takes time to say, oh, okay, who is connected or what property is connected to this person. So I would just suggest that in any email you send us, putting your property address in the subject line or at least in the body of the email, so we don't have to then go in and figure out what property we're trying to answer a question about. So that can save time, and it's just really helpful for us. So that's more of a favor, I would guess, as is the next one. If I get a ton of emails that just say call me, but then I have to go and look up the phone number for the person. So if you, I'm more than happy to call you, but it's super helpful to just like type in your phone number if it's not in your signature line, and then that just saves a few minutes, but when they can add up. So those are two favors that I would put in there that are very simple, but can save some time on our end.
And that concludes Angie and I's discussion about best practices for the Jumpstart loan application. And next week I'll be speaking with Julia Choseed, who is a local contractor and developer, and she'll be sharing her tips for construction management. The interviews on this program are recorded during Jumpstart Germantown's weekly Jumpinar series, which takes place via Zoom webinar every Monday night at 7 p.m. If you'd like to participate in the live Q&A with our guest, be sure to head to jumpstartgermantown.com/events and register for next week's Jumpinar. And if you're interested in starting a Jumpstart program in your own community, you can visit gojumpstart.org and see our how-to guide and open source training workbook. Thank you so much for listening to the Jumpstart Philly Real Estate Radio Show on Germantown Community Radio WRGU 92.9 FM, and be sure to tune in next week.